Welcome back to the Deliberate Exchange. I'm so happy that you're here listening. This came up in my community the other week, and I thought it was something that I'd love to kind of create some context around. Somebody had posted that they were heading out to do something new, and they were feeling major imposter syndrome. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, what even is imposter syndrome? Really, we have all heard the term. We throw it around all the time. I have imposter syndrome. I'm struggling with imposter syndrome. I'm waiting until I feel more confident, which made me wonder how much of what we're calling imposter syndrome is actually imposter syndrome and how much of it is just being a human being doing something that matters. If you've ever started a business or quit drinking, gone back to school, taken a promotion, got divorced and started dating again. Maybe you started posting to social media or facilitated a workshop, raised your prices, and you felt it. That voice that says, who do you think you are? What if people find out you don't know what you're doing? What if you fail? What if everyone realizes that you're not as good as they think you are? And that last one is literally the track that was in my head the majority of my career in construction. I had no idea, especially when I started making more money and getting more responsibility. I'm like, do they not know that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing? And of course I did know what I was doing, but I was just mired with this low self-worth and belief. What I think is really interesting is that most people immediately assume that those thoughts are evidence. Evidence you're not ready, that you're not qualified, that you shouldn't proceed. Now I'm considering that those thoughts are evidence that you're just standing on the edge of something new. What I've noticed in my own life is that every major expansion has come with a boatload of doubt. Every single one. Not some of them, every single one. When I quit drinking, when I started coaching, when I facilitated my first breathwork class, when I did my first podcast episode, when I started charging money, when I started speaking publicly, when I stepped into leadership, the doubt wasn't proof that I shouldn't do it. It was doubt. The doubt was accompanying growth. And that's where people get stuck. They have this idea that confidence comes first, then action. The way it actually works is the opposite. Action creates evidence, evidence creates confidence, not the other way around. Now, there is, again, given what I know now, there is a connection with the stress responses. Imposter syndrome doesn't simply live as a mindset issue. I think it lives in our physiology too, right? Consider your nervous system's primary job. It doesn't give a fuck about your your dreams, your goals, or your potential, right? I've talked about that on past episodes. Your nervous system's primary job is survival. And one of the ways that it keeps you safe is by preferring what's familiar, even if what's familiar isn't serving you, which is why people stay in jobs that they hate, relationships that they don't that don't fit, or patterns that they've outgrown, because familiar feels safer than the unknown. And so when you step into something bigger, your nervous system doesn't automatically say congratulations, welcome. It says danger, not because the actual thing is dangerous, but because it's unfamiliar. And then we can layer in the negativity bias, where your brain is naturally scanning for problems. It wants to scan for threats, for what could go wrong, which is incredibly useful when we're trying to not get eaten by a bear. Not as useful when you're launching a business or speaking on stage or posting online. Because now the brain starts gathering evidence. not for your capability, but for your inadequacy. You forget the 20 people you helped. You remember the one awkward conversation. You forget the 100 things that went well, and you remember the typo. You forget the years of experience that you've accumulated, and you focus on the one thing that you don't know. And suddenly you have what feels like evidence, right? See, I'm not good at this. But what you've actually got is a filtered data set. Now, the physiological needs piece is something that we need to bring into the equation, that it's so foundational, because sometimes imposter syndrome, like, it isn't that at all. Sometimes you're exhausted and not eating enough, and you've been sleeping like shit, and you've had 6 stressful days in a row. You're dysregulated. You're carrying so much stress that your capacity shrinks. And if you're drinking as well, like, that's going to compromise it too. Like, you're just fraying the edges of like an already thin thread. Every challenge is going to feel bigger. Uncertainty will feel heavier. Your decisions are going to feel a lot harder. I can't tell you how many times I thought, like, what the fuck am I doing? Only to realize that I needed some food, like some good quality food, sleep, movement, water, or a nervous system reset. That's why I talk so much about physiological needs and why I prioritize it in my life. Not perfectly, but it's certainly a hell of a lot better. Because you can't accurately assess your life from a depleted state. Now, there's also a part that I find like really quite interesting. Like, I nerd out on it. I think that what we call imposter syndrome is often an identity gap. Like, your reality has changed. Identity hasn't. You're already doing the thing, but your self-image is operating on old software. You still see yourself as the beginner, the outsider, the person trying. Meanwhile, everyone else sees someone capable. And eventually the identity catches up. But there is often a lag there. So what do we even do about it? Because I'm sure if you're here listening to this podcast, like, you have felt that feeling of being out of your depth. And the goal isn't to eliminate imposter syndrome. The goal is to stop making it mean so much, like putting all of this weight behind the meaning that it's making. So instead of, I feel like an imposter, I'm experiencing uncertainty. Instead of you thinking you're not ready, you can consider that, like, obviously this matters to you. That's why, like, it's kind of, you're putting a lot of weight on it. And maybe before believing the story, you can ask, have I eaten? Have I slept? Have I moved my body? Have I taken a breath? Have I looked at all of the evidence, or only the scary evidence? The problem isn't that you are an imposter. The problem is often that you're asking a stressed nervous system to accurately assess your capability. And a stressed nervous system is notoriously bad for that. The further along that I get in this journey, and considering like all the experiences that I've had and what I've done, the more that I think growth feels a lot less like confidence than I expected. I really did think that confidence would come first, and then I would take action. What I found, though, is confidence shows up after the reps, after the awkwardness, after failing, after making the mistakes, after surviving the things that I was convinced I couldn't survive. And so if you are feeling imposter syndrome right now, I don't want you to ask what's wrong with me. I want you to ask, like, what part of you is growing that your nervous system hasn't caught up to yet. Because there is a difference between being an imposter and being in the middle of becoming, and also just starting out, a lot more people are in the second category than they realized. And so I'd love to hear where you're at. Like, are you feeling like an imposter at your job or in your relationship or in your community? Do you have a hard time showing up because you're thinking like, okay, I'm not ready yet. Like I need to have this perfectly crafted X, Y, and Z, whatever that is. I'd love to hear about it. You can send me a message on socials or via email. And in the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.